apparently, John, I'm a hot take artist because I just said that Tony Pollard is a healthier, more explosive version of Christian McCaffrey, to which you say what?
It's a pretty hot take.
See?
I wouldn't go that far. I think Tony Pollard's been huge for them this year, and he's made himself a lot of money, and he is their biggest play weapon for sure. But I mean, McCaffrey is just on a different level. So I wouldn't put him quite there yet, but you see what Tony Pollard did yesterday, and you're just like, man, seems like there just has to be more ways to be able to get this guy the ball. And maybe there are. And maybe these last few weeks, maybe this is just the beginning of seeing more and more of him. And I just love the way that they used both backs in that game. I mean, down by the goal line, they still bring in Zeke. He gets the yard each time, short yardage other times in the game. And then just to complement him with Tony, not just the runner, but then using him in the passing game. I mean, I think that's what Cowboys fans have wanted to see for a long time.
Yeah, it's finally come through. But then that raises this question here, John. Is Tony Pollard in Dallas next season?
Oh, boy.
It's a good question. I'm going to say yes. And I think the Cowboys are going to have, I think as long as they stay healthy, I think that they're in position to make a playoff run, one that we have not seen around here in a long time. And if that happens, I don't think that they would let Tony Pollard walk. They would do it because I would take it if they did go on a run like that. He would be a big part of it. And I believe that if they would have went on a playoff run last year, that Amari Cooper would still be with the Cowboys. But when you get knocked out in the first round of the playoffs, you're the only wild card team to lose at home in the first weekend of the playoffs, and you're relatively healthy and you underperform, then changes happen. And then that's when you start going in another direction and you lose players that are talented and things like that. But if they meet their expectations, I think they'll be looking to try and run back with as many guys as possible. And so, yeah, there's always going to be a team that can come out of there and just blow you out of the water with some offer. But I think the Cowboys are going to make it really difficult for him to leave.
John, as much as you are around this team, how much stock do you put into the idea that last week's 14-point blown lead against the Green Bay Packers fueled this team to what they did on Sunday against the Minnesota Vikings?
Yeah, big time. There's no question that especially on the defensive side of things. Offensively, I think what we saw was a lot of, just another week of Dak back from the thumb injury, getting back acclimated, back up to full speed, and he just looked very comfortable. But defensively, there was clearly a chip on a lot of players' shoulders, none bigger than with Micah Parsons after that loss in Green Bay. And so do I think that they still would have beat the Vikings? Yeah, probably. But there's just no way that you go out and have this game that they had yesterday that, for me, like I tweeted after I was leaving the stadium, I mean, I've been covering this team since 2011, and there's no game that I would put on the level of this in terms of impressive win for the Cowboys since I've covered the team. And I've had some people respond, oh, that Saints win, when they beat the Saints, I think the Saints were 10-1 at the time in 2018. Mm-hmm. That was like 13-10 at AT&T. No, not even close. And then some people mentioned that Colts win when they beat the Colts in 2014 at the end of the year. Again, AT&T Stadium, 42-7 over that Colts. That Colts team was not this Vikings team. I know a lot of people, when you team wins like they did in this game, and then you start looking at the other team, and you're like, well, maybe the Vikings aren't that good. No, the Vikings are good. And to go into their building like that, they certainly weren't sleeping on you, thinking that you weren't going to come in there and give them their best shot. And then you do, and they have no answers and can't even score one touchdown with all those weapons. Yeah, there's nothing that comes close for me since I've covered this team in terms of impressive wins for the Cowboys.
This feels like a wild swing because we're talking about this game, but in this game, in garbage time, which is always a fun concept to be able to talk about in these situations, it seemed like Jason Peters came in at left tackle and Tyler Smith moved into left guard. And I that's something that's minuscule that really doesn't, I don't think, means a lot in the large scope or in that game. But could that be telling of something on how they're going to handle this offensive line situation once Tyron Smith is available to play again?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great point. I thought when it got into garbage time yesterday, I thought the two biggest things to keep an eye on were, what does Micah Parsons look like after that little knee scare? And then what you said, I mean, just the fact that, you hear rumblings about it that, yeah, when Tyron comes back, that they'll probably move Tyler Smith inside. But until you actually see them start working on things like that, and then to see it in a game, that is really telling. And then the fact that Jason Peters, they're done with the experimenting of moving him at guard and then back out to tackle. He's staying at tackle, and so I think it lines itself up for, Tyron comes back, then you move Tyler Smith into left guard. And as long as things go well there and there aren't any, just huge disasters, then that's the way you keep it. Because Tyron Smith is one of their best 5 offensive linemen when he's healthy, and they're going to have him on the field. They're not going to move him to a different position. That's just not going to happen. That's like they're not going to move Zach Martin to another position. So then you got to figure out the pieces around that. They're not moving Tyler Biadasz of center. They're not moving Terrence Steele from right tackle. So what does that leave you? That's Tyler Smith moving into left guard. And so, to see a little bit of that was quite interesting at a point in the game that wasn't very interesting.
Jon Machota of The Athletic joining us on the Get Right with Reggie KG right here on 105.3 The Fan. Jon, this defense has the most sacks through 10 games over the last 20 years, with 42 through their first 10 games of the season. Do you view this defense as a defense that can help this team make a legitimate Super Bowl run? In other words, is this a championship level defense in your mind that we're watching?
It is. And I mean, they have the ability to play at a championship level. I mean, what they did yesterday, that's beating any team in the league at any venue, wherever you want to put it. I mean, nobody was beating that defense yesterday the way that they played. Now, it might not have been 40-3, but when they play like that, there's no answers for that. And I'm not sitting here saying that, that defense is shutting down the 90s Cowboys offense or something like that, but I'm comparing it to what they will play on the field. And there's a lot of parity in this league. And with this parity-driven league, I just don't see any offense that's just going to sit there and consistently put up points against that defense when they're playing like that. So if you keep that pass rush healthy, you keep Anthony Brown, Trayvon Diggs healthy, a couple of the other key pieces, obviously Curse and Van Der Esch and Donovan Wilson and some of those guys, Malik Hooker, if you can keep that group together and they can keep growing week by week, absolutely, it has the potential to be. And it's crazy to even think about this because, again, since I've covered the team, it's been such an offensive first team. But they have the makings that they can win games for you in the playoffs without the offense needing to put up 20, 30 points. I mean, this defense, if they play like they did, yesterday, they could win a playoff game 13-10. And that's just not something that you'd think of from the Cowboys for the majority of the Romo/Dak era.
Jon, Justin Jefferson, there was a lot of hand-wringing about Justin Jefferson coming into this game. 3 receptions, 33 yards on 5 targets tells us what?
That he probably wants to play with a little bit better quarterback. I mean, there just wasn't a lot of looking his way either, where, just allowing to make a play. You can throw some of those passes against DBs, like the sensational one-handed catch he had against Buffalo, when you have you're not as worried about maybe that DB picking the ball off. But when Trayvon Diggs is on him constantly like he was yesterday, that's one of those things where I don't even think that Cousins wanted to risk that. And so because of that, you just didn't see him get a ton of opportunities. But no, I don't think that all of a sudden, just because Justin Jefferson hasn't played great in his 2 games against the Cowboys, that he's not still one of the top, 2, 3 receivers in the game. He still is. I don't know. Kirk Cousins just didn't have the time. Obviously, Micah Parsons and company, rushed him, mentally, and he just never looked comfortable. And so because of that, you never really got to see Justin Jefferson be the Justin Jefferson we've seen most of this season. So, it's not a great game by your quarterback, and when that happens, there's only so much a receiver can do.
Mike McCarthy got his 150th win of his career yesterday as a head coach in this league. But I'm interested in your perspective when it comes to this front office. Is Steven and Jerry Jones in some ways validated by the way this team has started through their first 10 games now with this 7-3 record that they have?
Yeah, I think everybody's validated as of right now, but that will change quickly. I mean, look at how look how panicked and upset everybody was after that Green Bay loss. Imagine that happens in the first round of the playoffs again, and they go home, at the beginning of the playoffs. They don't even advance to the divisional round. Then all of a sudden, no one's sitting here talking about hey, remember that win in Minnesota? That was so awesome. No one cares about that at that time. So, up until this point, there's no question. Tons of credit. For Dan Quinn for where he's got the defense at. Mike McCarthy, Kellen Moore for, having to win they won 4 games with a backup quarterback. I mean, who else is really doing that and doing it consistently? I mean, the game plans from week to week, for the most part, have been great. And if they're able to stay relatively healthy, maybe they do get by with just the draft and develop. But you get in the playoffs, they lay an egg, the Eagles go to the Super Bowl. I think there'll be a lot of people questioning, the Cowboys' plan of attack of, we like our guys and we're just building it this way and we're not going to add any, major pieces outside the building. So it still remains to be seen. But as of now, the way we look at it, they deserve a ton of credit. Jerry, Steven, Will McClay, everybody involved, because they're in a great spot right now. And then the key part to all of this, again, going back to my time covering the team, I'm so used to them being up 1 year, down the next, up 1 year, down the next, and to have this back-to-back years where, this is going to be back-to-back years that get double-digit wins for the first time since those, great teams of the 90s. That's a long time ago.
Cowboys starting 7-3 for the second consecutive year. Before I let you go, real quick, if I told you Lane Kiffin was headed to Auburn, what would you say?
Makes sense. Seriously, I don't know, man. They're very well paid to be an SEC football coach, but it's just wild times for all those programs. I think he would fit there. I don't. It's tough because they're not getting the same players that Alabama is, but I feel like once Saban leaves Bama, I don't know if they're going to be able to just keep that running, and maybe that's when Auburn catches up. And so, but yeah, he would be a good guy to kind of be a thorn in the side of Nick Saban once a year when they have to play each other. No, that makes total sense.
Well, apparently there's a report out there that he's going to resign Friday and go take over at Auburn. So that's where we are with college football.
How about all the jobs he's had?
Right?
People probably forget that he coached the Raiders. He was USC's coach, Tennessee. He's had so many jobs. It's I don't know. That deal is wild.